Welcome back, CA. This is episode 6 of the CA Lit Kit, Graphic, Text, and Multiple Choice. So for this episode, we're going to look primarily at graphic texts. These are a little different from the two previous texts we've seen, the informational and the dialogue texts, in that they contain a lot more charts, pictures, diagrams, maps. So it's a different kind of reading that's involved, but nonetheless, we can use some of the same skills that we applied previously. So here are two examples that we'll be looking at in turn to see how can we go ahead and read the text so that we best understand what the questions are asking us once the multiple choice arrives. Let's focus first on Canada's forests. So with any text, whatever its nature, we want to first begin by looking at the title. So Canada's forests is the title. And then other kinds of information we want to pay attention to are such things as different fonts. And we notice there's a variety of fonts on this page. You see one font up here. This is a different font. Here we have another one because it's related to a chart. Then we have a new title, Ontario's Forest Industry. So we're looking at reading from the top to the bottom. Here, Ontario's Forest Industry makes up the bottom of the page. And again, we see new fonts from the bottom all the way around. Anything in italics or bold or a font that is bigger or smaller could draw our attention to perhaps a changing topic or perhaps some sort of different important information. We also want to pay attention to anything that has arrows. It's directing our attention. As you can see here, this particular box represents an arrow that wants to draw our attention to the following charts, which are pie charts. We also would like to pay attention to pictures, and in the middle of the page there is a picture of a forest. We can see that there are evergreen trees, and that could prove beneficial or helpful when we're reading the information. There are also charts, and you could see right here, Canada's Forest Management is a chart. This is a bar graph, so things that are important here are the unit of measure, thousands of hectares. Even if we're not sure what a hectare is, we know that it is some sort of measurement because it is located near these numbers. That tells us something. We also are looking at what is located on the bottom. We see that there are a variety of province names. So again, we are in Canada. It's Canada's Forest Management, so it makes sense that we would be looking at the different provinces and territories, but things we need to pay attention to. This is a legend, and we've seen these before in our grade 9 classes. We want to pay attention to anything that a legend has to offer. In this case, 3 different shades of gray or black. So the darkest, it represents one item, area planted. The lightest is a harvest, and the middle shade of gray there is the area burned. If we look at the bottom of the page, we see the same kind of thing in the new pie graph. Here we have 3 differing shades and a new legend. Tells us main sectors this time. Sectors are areas or different types of the forest industry, and here we have the darkest representing the forest. Then we have pulp and paper. Even if we're not clear as to what pulp is, paper, we know we use paper quite often, so we know that's something related to how we use paper. And then there's any products that we use wood products for, so that's another area. Those are 3, and they're indicated in each of the small pie charts by the varying shades. Well, we have 2 legends on the page. Each of them gives us different information. Looking at the first legend for Canada's Forest Management in the chart, the legend tells us about areas planted in different years, the harvest area and the area burned. So we have 2008 and 2009. And each of these bars represent, for each province, those 3 factors and their respective years. Looking at the bottom, our legend again describes different colors. So the darkest, the lightest, and the middle shade. And yet, in this case, we're looking at numbers in terms of the years and the amount of money. So we're looking at trillions and billions of dollars from revenue in Ontario's forest industry manufactured goods. Revenue means the money the province earns. Over here, wages and salaries. This is what employees make. That's their salary and wages, how they're paid. And then new investments is money coming into the industry itself. So the numbers are indeed important things to look at because we most likely will be asked a question relating to these facts and figures. Now let's look at the second of our graphic texts, which is called New Roof at Wimbledon. The same way we approach the first, we'll do here. So the first thing we want to look at is the title, the new roof at Wimbledon, and then we'll look through from the top to the bottom. We see right away, we have a picture here. There is one diagram, here's another diagram, and we notice a small chart to the right. Okay. The page, again, seems to be split into two because there's the bigger title, that's a larger font, and then the smaller, which is the club facility, probably dealing with the bottom half of the page. Now, the roof section and the roof facts are combined together, so these facts relate to the top. We also notice some other symbols. For example, I notice at the very bottom of a page, there is an arrow pointing north, and that's called a compass. So that could be an important question coming up, something to do with the geographical location of this diagram, this club facility, the court itself. There is font and text that describes what Wimbledon is itself. So we want to just take a quick look at that. You can read that. And then there are a variety of different types of fonts. So there are bold. We have bold fonts that tell us about particular sections here, the interior, the roof material, the steel trusses, and underneath each is found a definition. So that's important to note. Looking down the page at club facility, we see the same thing. The court, the museum, the center court, broadcast center, Millennium Building, old court 2, new court 2. These are all bolded areas. Some have definitions and some do not. There's a variety of numbers located within the diagram to represent the different courts, most likely. Because Wimbledon, from the top we see, is a prestigious tennis tournament takes place in London, England. So those are things we want to look at. Also a variety of numbers, facts, figures, costs, and time factors in this case here. Now that we've looked at both of the graphic texts, we're going to go back and focus on Canada's forests and the multiple choice questions that accompany it. So for the intents and purposes of this video, we're only going to look at question number 6, but we will use our clue strategy to help us get through the question and to better understand which of our choices is the best option. So question 6 asks us, what conclusion can be supported by information in this selection? Well, we're looking at information in the selection in general. So it's a very general question, which means we're going to have to refer to each question line by line and see. One helpful strategy would be to locate. So let's see what option F gives us. The forest management of each region or province is unique. Okay, let's go back to Canada's forest, the image itself, and let's see here. Well, it's split up, we know, into two parts. We have Canada's forest at the top and Ontario's forest industry at the bottom. So this section, we're going to leave aside for just a minute and focus in on Canada's forests themselves. The question asks us, the forest management of each region or province is unique. Can we see that from this information? Well, let's focus in on C. So each of these provinces and territories is represented by the bar graphs. Do they seem to be the same or identical or very close to? Well, not really. I see a big difference all the way across. None of the provinces or territories seems to be the exact same. So option F, we should leave in as a choice. It could be the right answer, but let's go through the rest and see. G, it is likely that Alberta's forest industry is similar to that of Ontario. Again, when we look at the page itself, we want to compare Alberta and Ontario. So to focus on the bottom is only Ontario. We're going to go back to the top of the page and look. Let's see Alberta. Alberta and Ontario, are they the same? If we look at this bar graph in comparison to Ontario's, we see that they don't really look similar at all in any of the categories, so we can't conclude that they are the same, which means that we finally can eliminate an answer. What we're going to do is cross off G. That is not the answer we're going to use for this. Let's look at H. The pie chart suggests that forestry and logging in Ontario is the most profitable sector. Now, profitable means that it makes the most money, because when businesses make profit, we know that that means that they're doing well. Let's look this time at the pie charts. We locate the information at the bottom of the page. We know this because they've told us to look here. So the question itself asks us to look at the pie charts. Which of them is the most, it says forestry and logging in Ontario is the most profitable. So of the 3 pie charts, we're going to focus in on the revenue because that's the one that talks about which makes the most money for the province. The other 2 talk about money coming in and what employees are paid. Neither is relevant. So forestry and logging is the dark colored representation and it's 11%. Now we see that both of the other 2 make more. That means that it's not true. Forestry is not the most profitable. So we can now eliminate H as an option as well. G was gone and so is H. The last choice here is Manitoba's forest industry determines Canada's international position as an exporter of forest products. Again, we're going to look towards the top of the page to find out what Manitoba does. Look at Manitoba's numbers. They are very small. If Manitoba was to determine Canada's overall position, then those numbers would have to be large. Additionally, each of the provinces contributes to Canada's exporting, so we can't just look at one province with very small numbers. J, this is not our right option. So we're going to cross this one out as well. And that means that our first option, F, was the correct answer to the question. Stay tuned, CA, for episode number 7, Grammar.